Alrighty, howdy neighbors and welcome back to Deluge Threnody of Crashing Waves. Last time we finished Rika's, and I believe... Okay, it's been several days. As you can see, I believe that we're at Mize. It's nearing the end of the year. The school was alive with carefree bustle of holiday preparations and annual and communal events. I also can't read. I hope everyone knows. But my own mind is occupied with other matters, like the case of the fair-haired girl that had recounted me her dreams the previous night. And it was with those thoughts in mind that I was approached by Rika, who was laying the last preparations for the indoor sports festival that would be held this coming Friday. Abe, could you please help me? The basketball team is so irresponsible. They never have the preparations done in time. They consider themselves star athletes, too good for manual labor. But who's ever heard of Abbotsford's achievements in basketball? She cast her eyes to the deserted sports hall, which looked no different than usual. If it were up to me, I'd discontinue the whole program. We should focus on our strong points, like competitive swimming. I helped Rika with a few menial tasks, such as mopping the floor and positioning the bleachers. Then we adjusted the height of the nets to conform with national standards. It isn't much, but it'll have to do. I don't expect many people to show up anyway. She turned her attention away from the court. Are you coming to cheer for me this coming Friday? We're holding a demonstration tournament at the Olympic pool. I'd like it if you took my picture while I'm standing on the podium. You seem pretty confident of victory. I apologize for sounding so self-absorbed. It's just that it's important to create memories, especially when it comes to matters as transit as sports achievements. I promised Rika I'd be there. I plan on breaking that promise immediately. Before saying goodbye, I decided I wanted to share some of last night's events with her. And she seemed like the only one who was aware of Mai's disposition. I saw Mai again last night. An expression of both condemnation and curiosity flashed over her face. There. How is she? I hesitated. She appeared anxious. She's been having recurring nightmares, all centered on her little brother. Instantly, Rika took me by the hand, leading me to the adjacent locker rooms, where we could speak in private. Oh me, oh my. Her little brother. Her long-lost little brother, right? Yeah. She sighed. I was afraid of that. You should know, Mai doesn't have a little brother. I nodded. How should I put this? It's important to keep in mind that not everyone has been as fortunate in life as you and I. The Lord's ways are as mysterious as the pathway of the wind. Poor girl. We've all been condemned to suffer on this world. But for some, the suffering is made so much more unbearable. She cleared her throat to keep her voice from breaking. It all happened about 1 year before I was born. On a Sunday morning, the church warden gets up at 5 a.m. to prepare for the Sunday service. It was spring, but a biting chill still lingered in the fresh morning air. As the warden unlocked the wooden doors that lead to the main hall of the chapel, he heard a faint, exasperated wail. Many things have changed since the days of arcs of bulrushes. Mai had been left on the front porch in the early hours of the morning, wrapped in a blanket and a plastic shopping bag. There wasn't even a note. If she had been found any later, she may not have made it. Rika cleared her throat. There exists a long-standing custom of leaving foundlings on church steps. In the Middle Ages, there would even be a hatch near the entrance of the church, where desperate mothers could safely abandon their unwanted child. But during the 20th century, as the standard of living improved, the hatch fell in disuse and was bolted shut. Mine was the first foundling to turn up in Abbot since the war. Poor girl. What a miserable start to life she had, to be abandoned by the very people who were chosen to protect her. For the first few weeks, she was in and out of the hospital, receiving treatment against the efforts of undernourishment and hypothermia. Then she stayed with my parents for a while. But little Mai made a very impressive recovery, and by the time she was about 3 months old, she was placed at the Walsing couple, or with the Walsing couple. They're good people, somewhat simple-minded, but I truly believe that they have Mai's best interest in mind. They were never able to have children of their own, you see. So you'll understand how overjoyed they were to welcome the baby in their midst. But there was a rough road ahead. The first months of an infant's life make up the most crucial part of its formative years. Mai hadn't received the undivided motherly love that is so essential for the development of a person's cognitive abilities. As a child, Mai would always lag behind. She worked so hard, but still. When I was 3 and she was 4, Mai was already like a little sister to me. She was the kindest child I ever knew, with such an active imagination, but her speech remained baby-like. She never figured out the alphabet or how to count. And it wasn't like she didn't try. It was just that it was all so hard for her. So hard. Like something was in the way inside her mind. Something so brilliant, so beautiful, that it drowned out her understanding of the world around her. At times, it was as though we lived in different worlds. Mai entered elementary school 1 year late, so that we were in the same class. But even there, she struggled. The staff, the children, they didn't understand Mai. All the teachers saw was her weird behavior and the developmental milestones she kept missing. And the children took advantage of her kind-hearted nature by bullying her. And though I tried to protect her, I was only small. She simply couldn't go on this way. At the start of our second year, they chose to put her into a separate program. All social services in the town are coordinated by the church, including special education. We couldn't do much, but at least we could protect her. Protect her innocent, kind-spirited nature. I would have hated to see her go through the regular school system. The savagery. Rika had clenched her fist tightly around a strand of her ink-black hair. Mai has been with us for 19 years now. The Church's protection is coming to an end. She's not a child anymore. We need to find a place for her where she can learn real-world skills in a sheltered environment. Do you have a place in mind? Rika swallowed. We do. A boarding school just over the border in Germany. I was seized by a paralyzing terror. They're fully equipped to deal with Mai's mental challenges. You're sending her away. It's not, but she loves it here. I know, Abe. It's just that we can't offer her the care that she truly needs. The recent episodes you speak of, they're only growing stronger. After a while, Mai may no longer be able to distinguish her fantasies from reality. Don't you see? There's something so large, so splendid inside of her. As though she isn't truly of this earth. But with a mind as beautiful and unique as hers, there always lurks an imminent danger. If the figments of her mind aren't accurately tempered, she could lose her connection to this world, and then she may fall victim to herself. I sunk down, defeated. Are you sure it's a good place? The very best. Oh my god, no. You know what sucks is that German was my second language, but I'm so out of practice, I don't know what the fuck that could possibly say. And that hurts so bad. The name's there. My father maintains a professional relation with their chaplain. I promised I will go visit her every month. During the moments I spend with her, Maya always seemed so bright and easygoing. She acted childlike at times, and displayed a stupefying fascination with minerals. I realized I had no idea of the deeper laying issues that surrounded the young woman. And though Rika's plan of deporting Mai to a faceless facility filled me with an incumbent dread, I had to admit the church had spent inexhaustible effort toward Mai's well-being. The effort that was entirely unthinkable to me. And this realization made the situation so equivocal that I was unable to think of anything more to say. And it was a hard choice, Abe, even for me. But we need to do what's best for Mai. I'm absolutely positive that this is what's best for her. Over the next days, I'm going to spend as much time with her as you can, to make her time here worthwhile. But please don't tell her anything about her plans. If she catches wind of her upcoming relocation, before being in the right care, it may trigger an intense episode of delirium. She could harm herself or others. My. Rika told me they're moving her to a special facility. Really? My. But she's an integral part of our town. I couldn't imagine not having her around roaming the streets. Harassing people. She turned more serious. Was this her parents' decision to send her there? Or is the church behind this? The church. Her parents aren't even her real parents. Where are they sending her? A place in Germany. In a place I can't read anymore. This is so fucking depressing. I used to know exactly what that was. I'm upset. She took out her phone. I think I read about that place. Because it says they're optimally equipped to handle people struggling with her condition. Still, I don't like it. These types of places are often run by fundamentalists. They don't hold a rational view of psychiatric care, but consider mental disease a symptom of spiritual impurity. They have a bad record of dealing with the clients. Take a look at this inspection report. She handed me her phone. It speaks of an unsafe environment and unsanitary living conditions. I also found a lawsuit that's currently running against the institution, accusing personnel of false imprisonment and physical abuse. This isn't a place where they'll help Mai. They're locking her away in a private prison, maybe for good. I saw panic forming in Ina's eyes. We need to warn her, Abe. Now. What, me? Why me? You're friends with her. She trusts you. I'll try to think of something. I was about to leave when Ina stopped me. Hey, do you remember the conversation we had the other day? About how Mai told you Abbot was never an island. I looked it up, on the Heritage website. I'm afraid I stand somewhat corrected. The area has underwent a lot of geological changes over the centuries. The Isle of Abbot was created by a terminal moraine, an elongated accumulation of stones and debris that was left by the glaciers in the late Ice Age. It used to stretch out long enough to reach the mainland, but due to rising waters, it became an island around the year 1400. So in a sense, she was right, even though she probably just made it up. We haven't even covered this in high school. I wonder. It would be like Mai to know these things. She talks about the past. I hesitated. Never mind. Cool. Good talk. Spent the following day restlessly contemplating my next move, while an uncertainty of Mai's approaching fate hung over me like a bronze sword. I asked myself if it would be better to follow Ina's advice and warn her of her impending move. Maybe Mai wouldn't even mind the prospect. It would be a change of environment for her, a chance to meet new people. I thought back to how much she enjoyed our trip to Rybury Beach. How much good the new surroundings had done her at that time. And lured by the optimistic thoughts, I found myself casting stones at her bedroom window. It was long before she emerged from the adjacent workshop. Careful with those stones, you could break something. I thought it was a customer in these parts. She giggled. I have a single glazing, which makes it impossible to get insurance. Come on, let's go to my room. She closed the door behind her. My parents are growing old and forgetful. I have to help them with a lot of things, especially since I'm an only child. I have to wonder what will happen when they're no longer here. If I'll live here by myself to continue the farm. Do you want to? She thought for a while. I like it here, so close to the woods. Although the farm work is demanding at times, I don't know if I'll be able to carry on. Still, I feel a very strong connection to this place. And when I saw the delighted glimmer in her eyes, I just couldn't put it off any longer. Mai, I've come to tell you something. Rika told me that the church wants to transfer you to a new school. In Germany. Mai stared at me uncomprehendingly. She said it would be a place where you'd be able to learn many new things. Rika? Did Rika really say that? I'm not sure if she came up with the idea, but she was the one who told me. I don't understand. I have to stay here. My parents need me. I don't want to be transferred. A faraway shimmer was forming in her eyes. I always said farm work is hard at times. Like the chickens. I know they aren't really brought to a hospital. They get killed, all of them, when the pandemic breaks out. Not just the hens, but the little chicks too. It doesn't matter if they're infected or not. It's just a preventative measure. Papa would always tell me that they were moved to a hospital, just so that I wouldn't cry. But now that I'm older, I'm the one who oversees the process. And it doesn't change a thing. I still cry. Do you understand how hard it is? I want to stay here. I want to go to the dolmen with you. Why didn't Rika tell me? His knock goes to the door. Mai leapt up, letting out a muffled scream in the process. We hurried to the window. In the faint light, we saw a black Mercedes-Benz parked in the driveway. At the gate stood two dark-clothed figures, led by a handsome-looking man who appeared to be in his early 40s. That's John, Rika's father. Another knock, louder this time. Mama is home. She'll answer the door soon. Mai's voice was trembling with fear. They're coming to transfer me. I wanted to lie to her. I just stared at her wordlessly. I don't want to go. Why didn't Rika discuss this with me? Rika. I really don't want to. No. No. Her breath intensified. An abstract terror was formed in her eyes. And she addressed me, clearer and more coherent than ever. I can't leave. I like it here. I like you and Rika and even the church. I have to stay here, in Abbotsford, with the stones. I promise I won't cause any trouble. I'll stay inside. I will try harder. Tell Rika to let me stay. Please let me stay here. Tears are rolling down her cheeks. This is sad as fuck. Oh my god. I need to stay here. To wait for him. I need to be here. In the meantime, I can hear Mrs. Walsing answer the door and conversing with John Cooper. She sounded unfazed by the nocturnal visit, and it struck me that, like myself, she must have been informed beforehand. It was long before she let the men in. Mai had sunk to her knees, paralyzed with fear. The intensity of the moment weighed down on me, and suddenly I grew aware that, right now, we stood before a gambit that would irreversibly change both of our futures. I looked her in the eyes. Her quivering form appeared so far removed from the cheerful girl that I had come to know, that I suddenly felt a rare courage take hold of me. Mai. We could escape. Hell yeah, Abe! The second the last word passed my lips, she grew calm. Escape. We have to escape. Again. I'm not afraid. As long as I'm with you. Sigurd. No! At the moment, a tropical wind spread through the tiny bedroom, blowing back her golden hair, revealing the pale, spotless white of her mesmerizing eyes. I'm not afraid. I trust you. It's really you, Sigurd. Heavy footsteps on the stairs. Is it really you? Is it really you? Hell yeah, let's go. Relief smile across her face. I knew it was you. I'm so happy. Come to the window. Jump wasn't more than a few meters. Up down first, it's a cotton line. It was a lot heavier than I imagined, with the door to a room open. Mai took me by the hand and led me out over the yard to the nearby overgrowth. And I followed her, her golden hair guiding me through the pale moonlight. The first minutes were hectic. We crawled through the thick bushes, gradually growing aware of the frantic shouts and heavy footsteps that emerged from the house behind us. But by the time Cooper and his henchmen made their way outside, we had left them far behind. Our progress was slow. We tried to stay away from the major footpaths on the roads, taking detours whenever our path led us over exposed terrain. But the woodlands surrounding Abbotsford were wild and expansive, enough to disappear into. And so we did. For a good 3 hours, till it was completely dark outside, and even Mai was uncertain of our current whereabouts. She looked exhausted. What do we do? Where do we go? I was hoping you would answer that question. Slowly we made our way through an opening of trees that led to a narrow trail. Mai looked around, trying to discern her location. She saw a sigh of relief. I know this trail, at least the stones. I gestured her to lower her voice. Are you sure it's safe? She looked up at me drowsily. Her eyes was falling shut. I could tell she wouldn't make it much further. Let's go. In the dead night, we arrived at the archaeological site. We settled down in an alcove between the two megaliths, where we were invisible from the road. They feel warm, don't they? We're safe here. If I can't even say a word, she had drifted off to sleep. I made the resolve to hold watch all night. It wasn't long before I joined her. Lots of shouting, footsteps. I found myself wide awake, tugging at May's sluggish body. Her eyes shot open. Danger. They're onto us. We have to move fast. I think they have a hound. From my eye, I saw two of Cooper's men making their way in our direction. And a white bolt split the sky. Then one of the thugs rolling in the grass, touching his leg in agony. It's Virus! Maya scrambled to her feet. Come on, run. While Virus kept our assailants at bay, we bolted over the lawn, into the dense forest that led northward. Maya seemed sharper now, rejuvenated by a few hours of undisturbed sleep. We traveled where the woods were at their darkest, so that we had to find our way by touch. And then we kept moving, and it wasn't long before we grew aware of an ominous rustling of the bushes behind us. I froze. Maya cowered beside me. The rustling intensified. The bushes opened. Doog! And out leapt Virus, our silent protector. Virus! Maya spoke in excited whispers. Thank you for helping us back there. They didn't hurt you, did they? Virus sat, panting quietly. Though I urged Maya to head on further, she remained concentrated on the dog. Virus, can you help us out with one more thing? We want to go to the castle hall. Remember the place in the woods where the floor is covered in stone? The dog stared at her with a playful look in his eyes. There was no indication that he understood her request. Could you lead us there? I promise there will be a real treat this time. The dog turned his head. Thank you. And through the thick undergrowth we continued, slowly but steadily, never resting for longer than a minute. At times Virus would lead the way, but he would also lag behind, seemingly oblivious to his surroundings. From the highly inconsistent moss patterns in the trees, I could tell we're roughly traveling northward. The morning light had grown in intensity, and was now tentatively making its way through the blanket of misty trees. I felt tired to the point where I cursed myself for ever embarking on this pointless journey. Maya, however, had grown unusually quiet. Carefully she made her way through the clearance, muttering softly to herself and casting anxious glances through the trees. And she turned to me. We're fleeing again. Always fleeing. Just like back then. We traveled for months through inhospitable terrain. But no matter how dangerous the journey was, I basked in the consoling bliss. For I had reunited with GamesRHard, my little brother, and my happiness drove away the fear. The terrain was made up of treacherous marshes, intersected by patches of pine wood. For the past century, the seas had slowly encroached upon our settlements, gradually turning the arable pastures into basins of brackish swampland. Food became scarce, and many of the tribes that had been allied in the past resorted to warfare over the dwindling resources. Wherever we went, we were met with distrust and hostility. Traveling outcasts, left to fend for ourselves, with only GamesRHard's spear for protection. Then one day, when crossing the woodland fern, a large appendage lashed out from the shallow waters, sunk silver on GamesRHard's wrist, evading the blows of his spear, preparing to strike with his large toothed maw. And suddenly, out from the shadow looked a great gray wolf, and the creature lunged its fangs deep into the snake's flank. lacerating its scaly armor. The serpent shrieks out in pain, dropping Sigurd, as it turned its attention toward the canine assailant. Coiled itself around the wolf, and to squeeze out its very life. But the wolf was strong, was stronger than any mortal beast, and it resisted the serpent's strangling grip. Long enough for Sigurd to thrust his spear into the monster's gaping maw, impaling it in the mud. Slowly the wolf rose to his feet, shaking out his drenched fur. What? Beifre? 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 I think it's Beifre. The All-Mother, ancestor of our tribe, is capable of taking many forms. Although the serpent was defeated, we realized he was a herald of an encroaching kind, as the sea spread out through our domains. Nautical deities became gradually more dominant, pushing back our traditional chthonic gods into the depths of the underworld. Summer turned to autumn, autumn turned to winter. Nature died. Now the marches had frozen over. Serpents stood at bay. We built a shelter in the forest against the winter storms. But we couldn't stay in the same place for long, as food was always scarce. And I was 5 months pregnant at the time. I couldn't travel fast. During the coldest nights, Beifre would enter our camp, sleeping between the two of us. And her radiating warmth would drive away the freezing cold faster than any furnace. Beifre, the great wolf, our mother, always watching over us. We rested for a while in the castle hall, but the ground was cold and barren. And urged forward, instinctively by our fatigue, we made our way to the Dolmen, which stood nearby. Inside the earthen interior, which turned out to be quite spacious, we constructed a comfortable burrow from moss and fallen leaves, while fires camped outside to defend us against potential threats. This used to be a grave mound, right? What more of a place to hide in? Grave mound indeed. But it was far more than that. It was a worship and assembly hall. Voices were beginning to drawl. We lived together with the dead back then, our ancestors. Nothing to be afraid of. We slept all morning and most of the afternoon. I woke completely disoriented, more fatigued than before I fell asleep. Because your adrenaline's gone. Yeah, the adrenaline that had fueled my previous actions had dwindled, making place for an intangible dread. When I looked on my phone, I saw a few missed calls from Ina. Dialed her number immediately. Ina. Abe, I've been trying to call you all day. What have you two been up to? Voice sounded unwaveringly curious. You know what you told me to do. I warned her. I provided Ina with a summary of last night's escape. Has the town reacted to our disappearance yet? There's some shouting coming from the central square this morning. I'm not aware of any large-scale search operations. The church probably wants to keep Mai's escape under wraps for now, as not to fall under scrutiny for their actions. Anyway, where's your current whereabouts? Dolmen M4. Near the northeastern slope. Please wait, I'll head down there immediately. I'm kind of concerned about that, actually. Make sure no one follows you. Baby. It wasn't long before we were alerted by Fyrus's muted barking. There, Fyrus. I brought you some sausages. Please be quiet. Ina, I'm glad you can make it. More groceries for lunch and dinner and tomorrow's breakfast. Thanks, Ina. You probably haven't eaten for days. Mike cast Ina a ravenous glance. I also brought you some sleeping bags, as you will probably have to stay here for at least another night. I started looking for better options this evening. I don't understand. Why did Rika do this to me? Ina gave Maya a comforting nudge. Don't worry, we'll find a solution. I promise. But let's eat first. In the setting sun, we feasted on the bread and canned goods that Ina had brought us. After our meal, Ina, who still had a lot of research to do, got ready to leave. And while May stashed our new gained supplies inside our burrow, Ina took me aside for a second. I want to get Maya some clean underwear. Poor girl must be suffering. I felt the blood rush to my head. Would you happen to know her sizes? Her sizes? Well, why don't you ask her? She blushed. Oh no, it's embarrassing. I mean, I thought you might know. I definitely don't. She pouted. I think she's larger than me, but not by much. When I think about it, the clothing store is owned by church people. They may become suspicious if I suddenly start buying larger sizes. Who told them you increased your dairy intake? Ina glanced at me. Just have to do with some of my spares. Ina went home, and Maya and I turned in early. While I fell into restless, fragmented sleep, Maya remained sitting upright, whispering long stories to herself, and sometimes it was as though I felt a quiet rumble passing the stones below us. Is she about to end the world too? God damn. After breakfast, Ina returned, carrying clean clothing for Maya and additional supplies. I could do with some boxer shorts, you know. Oh please, I'm not your mother. I'm working tirelessly all night. Let's get you two out of this sticky situation. I scheduled a call with a representative of the women's shelter in Bremersburg this coming Thursday. Mai may be able to stay there for a while. I just won't be able to find her there. Have you looked into places for me to stay? Not really. You'll have a roof above your head once they lock you away for kidnapping a mentally impaired individual. Hey. I'm not mentally impaired. I glanced at Ina disappointedly. I'm sorry. I must have had you two mixed up for a second. Anyway, Mai, I brought you something else. Ina reached into her bag and produced a large book. Illustrated Geological Lexicon was written over its cover. That's awesome. Mai eyed it apprehensively. I thought it might provide you with some distraction. Are you keeping a low profile? Thank you, Ina. It's just... I'm not a very good reader. Ina smirked. I'm sure about that. Come on, let's take a look at this together. I'd love to find out how bad your reading truly is. Even Abe here can read. Can't you, Abe? Two girls giggled as they seated themselves against the base of our dolmen. As soon as Ina opened the book to reveal its illustrations inside, Maya's initial hesitation turned to pure delight. Oh look, that's limestone. And hematite. Around noon, Ina got up to help me prepare lunch, while Maya remained fully engorged in her book. So how's she doing? Slow but steady. Maya doesn't even know all the letters of the alphabet, you know. Just her name. The letter S. She's been actively keeping her away from books, convincing her she's incapable of reading. That's terrible. And nonsense. Just a few hours of practice, she's already reading words and short phrases. The human ability to read has evolved a relatively short time ago, but it's not ingrained too deeply in the structure of our brains. An adult can overcome illiteracy quite rapidly with the right training. Other functions, such as speech, which need certain synaptic networks to develop, they cannot be learned at a later state. So, also you may be interested to know, Karen called this morning. That's great, she's making a steady recovery. Gradually. She suffered a cerebral contusion, which will take a while to fully heal. But you'll be able to leave the hospital soon. I took the liberty to tell her about Mai. I jumped. Don't worry, I haven't told her your whereabouts. Besides, she seems sympathetic to our cause. Karen told me how the mental health service is organized in this town. It's the council's responsibility to allocate accurate care to their beneficiaries. In Abbotsford, however, they only have one mental health care institution. It's called the Lazarus Foundation, and is run by the church. Due to Cooper's interference with the town council, all underage patients with psychiatric needs are automatically redirected to Lazarus. There is no viable alternative. That's bad. Probably. But now that Mai is of age, we have the agency to change that. If her legal custodian states a case against the council, she may be able to have her funds redirected to a proper mental health organization. One that actually works for her, instead of doing everything within its power to keep her in the system. Unfortunately, her current custodianship lies with her parents, who are loyal to the church. Which means that, once they find her, the Lazarus Foundation will ship Mai off to Germany, never to be heard from again. I sighed. Also, there's one more interesting detail Karen let loose, which is the Lazarus Foundation celebrates their 15th anniversary this year. That's good for them. No, think about it, 15 years. Mai's 19! No. 15 years ago, Mai was taken out of regular school system, placed under the auspices of the church. For that, mental health cases were handled by a regional healthcare provider. Lazarus was founded to harbor Mai, specifically for that purpose. What kind of disturbance could that girl have caused for an entire institute to be established solely for her cause? When evening fell, Ina returned home, and Mai and I returned to our sleeping bags inside the Mesolithic tomb. How long do you think we'll need to stay here? Just a short while longer. Ina says she has a plan. It's okay. I could stay here forever if we had to. I sleep much better here than at home. And do you know, the nightmares have stopped. They disappeared ever since we ran away. Almost as though they were urging me to flee. To move out of the indomitable marshes. Inch by inch, the sun painted the walls of our burrow with its morning rays. After breakfast, Mai returned to her geology book, in which she progressed at an accelerating speed. I just basked in the midday sun, paging through an increasing list of missed calls on my phone, some of which were from Rika, some from the school, And none, unsurprisingly, from my father. Suddenly, May called me over. Come, look at these marks. She's pointing on one of the stones, trailing her finger along a series of perpetual groves that ran along its side. These are called glacial striation. It was formed by the wear of stone suffered when it traveled inside a great glacier. It runs lengthwise along the face of the rock, as it's the direction that causes the least friction. While she was speaking, the fire suddenly came up to us, visibly alarmed. When I listened, I detected a faint sound of footsteps and voices came from the forest trail. Hear that? They're coming. She closed her book, and hurriedly we gathered our belongings, such as sleeping bags and food, far inside the dolmen, hidden from outside view. Come this way. Maya took me by the hand, leading me in the opposite direction of where the sounds came from, while fire stayed nearby. Soon the chirping of birds and rustling of leaves had all but disappeared, due to lack of foliage in the council hall that engulfed in the death-like silence that was only sporadically interrupted by the muted sound of a branch cracking underfoot. What could that have been? A search party, maybe? Do you think they're looking for us? It's okay. Just listen to the silence. We were able to hear them from miles away, all covered in snow. I was heavy, almost too heavy to move, as I protected the tiny life inside of me, which felt close to dying out. Sigurd would go to hunt, bringing the catch to our hiding place. But winter was harsh, harsher than the winters before, and it spread its frosted fingers across the land so that we found no refuge. We had no choice other than return to the village, the secluded hamlet from which we'd fled the previous summer. There we would plead for shelter and heat until our child was born, even though there was little chance they'd welcome us. And then, with the reluctance of captives, we embarked upon the journey home. Many times I was so slow that we moved at a crawl. Many times we had to interrupt our voyage to hide from the perpetual winter storms. How often was I close to giving up, fearing the little fire inside of me would extinguish if I even set one step further. Sigurd comforted me, telling me to have courage, for he believed a great fate rested on the birth of our child, a fate connected to the very survival of our kind. In Beifre, I believe is what I said, the All-Mother watched over us throughout, chasing away foes, bringing us small prey. And in her trail, I know we followed an illuminated path. After 13 days of travel, we reached our destination, the secluded crest, setting of my tormented youth, under which our village lay, covered in snow, wrapped in silence. An absolute, penetrating silence, as though all life had vanished for miles around. As we descended the ridge, we found the root of the silence. Under the snow lay buried in atrocity. Burnt down houses, bloodied corpses of men, women, children. The war had raged throughout our homestead, leaving no soul alive, no hearthstone unshattered. Our entire clan, from which we had fled after our reunification, had been rooted out of the hillside for good. Of our village, only the great dolmen remained, as an unmovable testament to the perseverance of our ancestors. We took refuge inside its solid walls. Maya looked up at me with saddened eyes. just like we do now. And while we sheltered, paralyzed by listlessness, a spring broke through. A soothing, delightful, warming spring that chased away the winter storms. And amidst the glow of the beautiful, heartwarming spring, I finally found the strength to give birth. Under the comforting care of Sigurd, my own brother and husband. Okay. With Beifre protecting us from harm, I gave birth to twins. For two flames had burned in me all the time. Beautiful, strong infants, a boy and a girl. The presence of the All-Mother ran strong in our bloodline. For that blessed morning we were happy as we bathed and fed our newborn children. With great joy comes inconsolable grief. I was weak, Sigurd. Their journey, the exposure to the cold, the grueling delivery, they left me wholly depleted. It was as though, in keeping these two tiny beings safe, my own fire had given its final flame. And I was weak. I could feel my fire dying out. All I saw was Sigurd, holding our beautiful children. My. Sigurd. Miser ghost! I had become a deathly pale, as though she were close to passing out. The silence we sat and waited, unsure of our next move. When 2 hours had passed without a suspicious sound, we reluctantly set off to pack our belongings. The domino was so peaceful, I began to wonder if the voice in the woods had been no more than figments of our imagination. Until a dark-haired figure emerged in the opening between the stones. Before I could realize what's happening, she had struck me in the head. The large leather-clad tome that she had held in her right hand, so that I was knocked backward by the blow. Rika! I stood paralyzed. There you are. Come now, Abraham. We know you had your eyes set on Miss Walsing all along. But to imagine that you'd go as far as to kidnap her. Rika took out her phone. Fugitives have been located. Same place where you found the sleeping bags. Come over right now. I wanted to grab make a run for it, but I still found myself disoriented by Rika's blow. A thin trickle of blood was making its way down the side of my neck, steadily staining my shirt a deep burgundy. Oh, poor baby, did it strike you too hard? You're forgetting how heavy these old Bibles are. They really don't make them like they used to. Her lips curled into a foreboding grin. She could stay conscious for a little while longer. I'll have an excellent health care available for you at the municipal jail. Rika, that's so mean. Hold your tongue. You're in some deep trouble, too. How dare you run away from us? Maya whimpered, overwhelmed by the spontaneous outburst of rage her one-time friend had unleashed on her. Our church has always looked after you, Mai. We cared for you, when no one else would. Not even your own parents. Maya let in an agonized wail. We housed you, fed you, gave you an education. Education? What kind of education? A special education, tailored exactly for... You taught her nothing. Not even how to read and write. You grew quiet. You were supposed to fury, making place for a severe, more articulate anger. No, Abe. You don't understand. That's what she needed. Rika shot a spiteful glance at Mai, who was sobbing silently. She's an abomination. No! Rika! Ever since she was young, Mai has displayed a certain trait. It was always there, hiding in her eyes, like an unsettling presence. We realized her early life had been eventful, and hoped it would pass with the years. But it worsened the moment she entered elementary school. She began learning how to read and write. Mai's classmates would come home fatigued whenever they spent too much time in her presence. Even worse, things would break in her vicinity. One day, when she had been put in detention for driving a classmate to tears, her teacher found her inside the storage room, surrounded by shattered school supplies. And Mai just sat there, staring at her, a blank look in her eyes. I have vague recollections of those disturbing events. For us, it was heartbreaking to see a young, innocent child be consumed by these powerful demons. The things her biological parents must have done to her to create such a horror, truly blood-curdling. Gradually, older kids began to pick on Mai's weird behavior. She was bullied mercilessly to the extent that they had to take her out of school. But the thing is, the Lazarus Foundation worked on creating a private curriculum for her, and I noticed that Mai began to fare much better, unchallenged by social and cognitive stimuli. It was clearly the stress of mainstream education that brought out the worst in her. And without these outside influences, she returned to her good behavior. After we confirmed her to a sober regimen of solitary play and coloring books, the chilling glare slowly disappeared from her eyes, and the mysterious occurrences ceased happening. And then two figures appeared, taking position behind us, maybe just for them to stand by. While Mai is under auspices of the church, my parents instructed me to keep an eye on her, to be her friend, even though I didn't want to be. To be honest, I was rather afraid of her. Mai stirred. I hated it, being paired up with... That is not a good word! How dare you? But it was my duty, as the pastor's daughter. Fuck off, Rika. I can't believe I liked you. Tact as a caregiver. Rika. My head began shaking. I hated it so much that I'd even play mean pranks on her. But Maya didn't mind, as I was her only friend. Rika, you... Maya was doing so well. Behavior grew stable, under our unwavering care. But look what you've done to her. Camping trips, books. Maya can't have that kind of stimulation. You're undoing all that we worked so hard for. I can see it in her eyes already, the growing madness. Go, seize her. Take her to the car. The police will deal with the boy. But as the men enclosed to the trembling, forlorn figure of Mai, a white light began to shine. It was a calming light that enveloped the entire scene, drowning out all noise and violence. It appears to be emanating from Mai. At the moment, I began to wonder, maybe Rika was right, and maybe the overpowering mixture of excitement and emotion had woken a certain attribute in the girl. A unique trait, wholly inconceivable by human understanding. Rika, what is happening to me? I feel heavy. And I strained my eyes. I'm being flashbanged. Which had almost come to the overpowering luminescence. I realized the light didn't come directly from her, but it was originating from the dolmen behind her, on which the S-glyph had begun glowing mysteriously. And then I was blind. Girl, me too, the fuck? All breaks down into cycles. What exists is fated to return upon itself again and again until the end of times. The apple seed sprouts into a sapling, then grows into a tree, until one day it itself is ready to bear fruit. And thus it repeats. Does it sound like the greatest torture to you? You're living your life, every second of it, over and over again, into eternity. You're condemned to recurrence, growing through infancy, childhood, parenthood, before in turn giving birth to new life. How far can we trace back the lineage? Throughout history, great civilizations, vast seas of dark that lay in between. All returns to the progenital event. The initial completion of the cycle that all of existence ripples out from. Each iteration of the cycle is bonded to the progenital event. All life is seeped from its uniting essence. The essence of all. Beifre. Life today mirrors history, born from anguish and despair. A reunification, the escape, the birth, the death. It occurs again and again, like an originating myth of which all existence must atone. Each cycle attempts to come to completion in the same way it did something. Each of our actions are seeped in the essence of all, carrying a limitless potential of the first iteration. And each time the cycle repeats, the potential accumulates, steadily growing. Suddenly, an enormous blast resounded through the forest, as the force of a tropical cyclone blew us to the ground. Beside me, I saw Rika, who appeared to be in anguish. Her clothes had been torn to shreds by the blast. The sound of the winds, I could hear her praying furiously, as though her faith was being tried to the fullest extent. She does great wonders, making fire come down from heaven upon earth within the sight of man, and she deceives those who dwell on the earth by means of those miracles which she performs on behalf of the beast. Gradually, all returned to silence. Aye. The presence of the All-Mother is distant now. No longer do we perform the forbidden rites. Many transit gods have since been bestowed the allegiance of man. For short periods only, for those younger gods are constituted in the fashion that is bond to the linear time. And as the white light continued outward, I noticed that its beams did not hurt me at all. They simply went through me, filling me with a comforting sensation of immaculate bliss. For it felt as though I recognized the light, its powerful, warming touch. And though it had been with me, even from before the time I was born. And as the beam grew stronger, I further surrendered to its glow, until I could no longer determine where the boundary between it and myself lay. It was when I saw how the tale ended. Inconsolable grief gave birth to the greatest happiness. A new family, already without a mother, looking out over a ravaged world. Death encroached at us from all sides, as though taunting the last of the living to join its ranks. While Beifre nursed the twins, I laid my sister to rest inside the grave mound. Her, their mother, the last of our tribe, to be entombed therein. And while we remained there, mourning for 7 moons, I etched the sigil of our clan at the dolmen's exterior wall. S. Sign of the river, flowing eternally, fruitfully, into the estuaries of time. So flourished then, blood of waltzing. Did Mai just die? I think Mai just died. I didn't realize how long this episode is. Pepper. Yeah. I'm just gonna finish. That was about it was about a week later when I received a message from Ina summoning me to her office. Whatever. So, are you ready to get back to work this coming Saturday? Work? They've been shut down. I thought so too. Until I received a highly apologetic letter from the school board notifying me that the immediate reinstatement of our monthly funding. And no reason. No reason stated. I think we may have a hidden benefactor pulling strings somewhere. The door opened and two visitors entered the room. Okay, Mai's alive. Woo! Mai, Karen, thank you for joining us. You're just in time. From now on, Mai will be writing our weekly rock-solid advice section. She answers geology-related questions. And as a managing editor, Mai is something. I will be in a position above you, Abe. So please make sure her every need is met. Sounds great. Does that mean that she'll be able to enroll in high school? I have. I need to take remedial classes until the end of the year. But after that, I can enter 10th grade. Karen laughed. Mai has been settling in just fine. She's a great helper in the garden. We're almost done decorating her room. Didn't the church give you any trouble? Well, they were apprehensive at first, but I noticed your little confrontation has directly struck some fear into them. And also, have been doing some digging. Looked into the financial administration of the Lazarus Foundation. Found out they've been misappropriating community funds ever since their inception. It was one big mess of shady bookkeeping, missing receipts, unjustified payments to offshore accounts. Once I hinted at the matters, Cooper became docile as a lamb. Suddenly the transfer of legal custodianship was completed in a day. They even helped me move Mai's belongings. And all operations of the Lazarus Foundation have been suspended indefinitely. If they ever start up again, it will take only one call to the inspection board to have them shut down. Come on, Karen. Let's head down to the cafeteria. I want to interview you before next year's electoral campaign kicks off. Two women exited the room. Mai turned toward me, smiling self-consciously. I really like staying with Karen. It's the first time I lived in a town, you know? But she's helping me fit in. We weren't allowed to set up a chicken coop in the garden. Those poor neighbors. She giggled. And in her sweet, unencumbered smile, I saw the will to live of 100,000 generations reflecting back at me. Hey, please come to the stones with me. I want to show you something. Again. Deluge! To be continued. So I'm a little confused on my story. I don't fully understand, because I know it's supposed to be like generational stuff. But also it doesn't make too much sense. Like, the Beifre guy. Like, he just show up. We were just hanging out. They're just saying, by the way, they're dying right now. But she's alive, so that doesn't make sense. I don't know, I need help with that one. Press any key to continue. A disrespect of it all. There we go. Press any key. Done. You have currently unlocked the ending routes for Rika and Mai. You can play the remaining endings by loading a save file or return to part 4. How many... God, the music of this game is fucking phenomenal. We're on page 5. I kinda want to go back and do this, but not yet. I'd have to go back to here and say no. Now, I know that for next time. But I'm gonna leave it off here, because it's already getting late. Or I guess too long. So thank you very much for watching, and hopefully I will see you later.